Inventor 2017 Final Exam. In this exam, we're going to take a look at the complete functionality, or at least the foundational functionality inside Inventor, and go through an exam for this. So if you go to the vertani1.com and exams tab, go down to the green block Inventor Basics Final. And here you'll see the 4 steps for creating the clock assembly, which this is what we're going to recreate right here. Okay, you'll see there's an exploded view, there's a detail view, section view, front view, left and bottom view. There's a parts list and just some other items that we're going to take a look at. So what you need to do is you have to go to the part files and download the final exam parts. This will bring you to this zip area where you could hit download and then grab the files. I dropped them on in my downloads directory and created a new directory for it. Now remember, they're zipped, so you have to unzip them. So it's just you're just cutting them out of the zip file and putting them into a new folder. That's all. Okay, so once you have those, now we could go over here to New and Standard I Part. Okay, now we're going to start with the part file. It's going to be the clock bezel that's in that drawing. I already know the dimensions, so I'm not going to go back to the drawing every time. So just note that the dimensions are in the drawing. I'm going to start off by going to Start 2D Sketch. Now in this case, it's a clock bezel, or a clock that would sit on a wall. So your XY plane, in theory, is the best plane probably to choose for this. Go to the Circle tool and draw out from the origin an 8-inch diameter circle. Then from the origin, drag out a small 0.5. We're going to put the through hole in at the same time when we extrude this. So now we could go to 3D Model, Extrude, select the profile, and it needs to be 0.75 thick. Now, before you go any further, don't forget the fillet. It's very common when students take this test that they forget to put the fillet on, and it's a 0.25 radius, and it just goes along this edge in the front. Hit OK. Now select this face and start a sketch. Take your circle tool and at the origin drag out a 7-inch diameter circle. Let's go back home up here in the upper right to get to an isometric view and go to 3D Model and Extrude once again. This time we have to flip the direction, and it should automatically go to cut, but always double check, because I've seen it sometimes not do that, depending upon the selections that you make. It needs to only go 0.125, and this is in inches, by the way, and that's about it. Hit OK. Now normally you could select this face and then put the next cut in, but if you were to take a look at the drawing, you might notice that actually it is based off of ordinate dimensions there. And I've had students for years making mistakes and they forget to do the math, and so it comes out wrong. So the way to avoid doing math where you could just put in the explicit values, just select this little face on the front of the clock bezel. Start your sketch and draw the next diameter for the recess, and this is going to be 6.5. Now we go to 3D Model, Extrude, and again flip the direction and make sure the cut, if you notice this time it doesn't go to cut automatically, so make sure you select cut, and then the depth of this is just 0.5. Okay, now select the floor of that cutout, create a sketch, and we're going to start putting in the digits. The first digit is the 12 o'clock, and it's 0.375 at 12 o'clock. Go to dimension and dimension it from the center, to the center of the clock at 2.5. You'll notice that in the drawing it's a bolt circle at 5 inches in diameter, so we're taking half that for the radius equivalent. Now let's go ahead and go to 3D Model and extrude that, and the height is only 0.1. Now we could go to circular pattern up the top here and select the feature. That's the digit. Now click on this red arrow, and the rotation axis could be this outer face. Make sure the placement is set at 12 digits at 360 degrees and hit OK. Now rotate around and let's put on the features on the back. Start a sketch. Draw a circle at the center at 7.5 inches and go to 3D model and extrude that 0.125 deep. So again, hit the cut or the flip direction. Make sure both are selected. They might have automatically done it again in this case because it detected something below it. And this is only 0.125 in depth. Now select this face, and we have to make 4 posts. So draw a single post just floating here, 0.25, and go ahead and dimension that post to the center. 1 inch and 1 inch. Now go ahead and take the line tool and switch to center line up here and draw a vertical center line to the origin and a horizontal center line out. Hit escape a couple times and make sure you turn off center line. We're going to use those to mirror. So now we could go to mirror, select the circle, click on the red mirror line icon and select the vertical center line. The order really doesn't matter as far as vertical or horizontal center lines, but let's go and now click and drag a little fence to surround both of those. Click on the mirror line button once again and select the horizontal center line. Hit apply and done. Now I could go to 3D model and extrude that and select the 4 posts. Be sure to enter 0.25. Hit enter. The clock bezel is done. That's worth 100 points. So save it. And I'm going to go ahead and save it to my downloads directory. And I actually have a folder in here, Inventor Final, where I dropped all the parts earlier in there. I'm going to go to small medium icons. That way you can see each image. And this will be named, I'll just call it the clock. Hit save. Now we can move on to the next stage. We could either go to File New or just go up to New up here and select Standard IAM. Hit Create. Go to Place and select the clock. Hit Open and just click to drop it anywhere. We only want one instance, so once you zoom out, hit Escape. Now, be sure to right-click on the geometry of the clock and select Grounded. That locks it down. Now we could go ahead and grab some other parts. The first one I would recommend is the chrono housing. Drop it behind the clock and then hit Escape after you drop the first one. Now, just for good measure, it's going to make it a little easier to click on Free Rotate. Click on that chrono and drag it around so that the 2 holes at the top show and that it's pointing somewhat at the clock. If you don't do this, then it has a tendency to flip 180 degrees opposite usually of what you're hoping for, and then it's a little hassle to relocate, but not a big deal. But let's go to Constraint, and now I'm going to go ahead and constrain the center line axis on this black sleeve and hit Axis, and then I could just actually select the outside face or the inside face, any of those for the axis, and you'll see it position itself. Hit Apply, and I'm going to hit Cancel for a moment so I could grab this and carefully drag it out. Now notice you could easily flip it and rotate it the wrong direction. I'm in the home mode here, which is isometric. Make sure that those holes stick up because later on we have to attach the bracket to that with some bolts. Okay, now the next thing we're going to do is, let's zoom up there, and we need to go back to Constraint, select this hole. Now don't grab the green dot. The green dots are bad. You want the axis. Click, hold Shift and drag mouse button, and a middle mouse button that is, and select this axis here. Hit Apply. Finally, select this flat face on the back side of the clock, and then release and select this face here to lock it in. Hit OK. We could go back home now in the upper right. Let's go ahead and grab some other parts here. In this case, the bracket will drop in right over there. Hit escape, and we'll have to rotate this around. And again, a good measure would be to free rotate that bracket so that the bracket is facing the backside and these are on the base. We could hit escape, and now we should position it. So we'll go to constraint, and we could actually select the points. Hit apply. And actually, at least for one of them, you could get away with that. But this next one, use the axis just so it doesn't kind of act like a joint or a hinge. Hit OK. All right, so now let's go ahead and bring in the bolts. Go back to place, select the bolts. You'll be able to drop two of them up top here. And again, use the free rotate tool and point them down just a little bit. That's just so they don't pop in upside down. Okay, now we go to constraint, select the axis here, and to this axis, make sure you zoom up so you get the axis, hit apply. We could select this edge now to this face. Now the preview looks like it's buried in the face, it's just the preview is messed up a little bit there. Okay, let's do the same over here, select this axis to this axis, apply, and this edge where you get the green dot to this face, and hit OK. We're now going to go ahead and bring in some additional parts. The hour hand, we'll bring that in first, drop that over there. And now let's go to the constraint tool again. Select this flat face of the hour hand to the end of the black sleeve, that face right there. Hit apply. And now you can select this outer face of this radius or the inner face, either one, to any of the sleeves. Hit apply. Let's go back to place and grab the minute hand. Drop that right about there. And now let's go ahead and okay, so again, go to constraint, select this flat face to the end of the white sleeve, that face there. Hit apply, and then select the outer or inner to get the axis, and then the gray post. Hit OK. Last but not least, we next want to go to place and grab the lens. Open that up and just drop that over here. Once again, I would recommend going to free rotate and position it so that it's somewhat facing the proper direction. Okay, so if you rotate this way, you can see the convex surface is on the outside. Hit escape, and now we should be able to go to constraint and position this. So I'm going to go ahead and select this face here to the outer face. That brings us to where it's laying in there. Now I have to drag it out. Now this one's a little tougher because the lens is actually transparent. Yes, we could change it up here, but why waste the time? If you could just get this face on the back and make that flush. Now you have to be very careful here. A very big mistake people make is they make it flush to this surface. It's actually not that surface. It's the second step down. Make it flush to that face. All right, at this point we could go ahead and save it. And we'll go ahead and save this as the clock. Yes, we could save it as the name of the same item earlier because it's not an IPT. It's going to be an IAM, which is an assembly file. And just hit yes to all. OK. And OK. These are just because they're older files. You get some messages. OK, now at this point, we're going to go and we're going to go to the third file type. Go to New and select Standard IPN. Hit Create. This is a presentation file required for the exploded view. And we'll go ahead and name this the clock. Oops. Oh, hold on one moment. What did I do there? My mistake. Let's do that once again. Standard IPN, create. Okay, it's looking for the actual assembly. My mistake, I apologize. Okay, now I'm going to go to the Inventor Final and find my clock and open that up. And that basically was asking me to open that up inside there. Now I could go to Tweak Components. Make sure that you're in the home position because that's the position that's going to show up most likely in isometric. Click on the lens and drag the forward arrow forward and maybe about 11 inches. Then go ahead and select the minute hand, drag that out maybe about 8 inches. 8 inches might be a little too much. No, that looks just about right. Then click on the hour hand, drag that forward about 5 inches. And now click on this part, and now you could actually rotate this around and control select these other items. I'm holding control, and now I'm going to go back home and drag those out about 5 inches. I can zoom up here to the top, click on the, actually I'm going to hit the green check mark. I'm going to click on the 2 bolts. Again, hold control. Oh, I have to go back to Tweak Components. There we go. Now drag the bolts up about 4 inches. Then click on the bracket. Drag the bracket up about 2 inches. Hit the green check mark. There is our presentation file. That's just to explode. You can't animate this. There's a lot of other functions in here we're not going to look at today. But let's go ahead and save that. And again, we could save it as the same name. All right, the fourth and final part of this test is to create the drawing. So we could go to New and ANSI drawing. Okay, by default, it gives us a D-size sheet, which is a little bit big for us. We're going to drop it on something a bit smaller. So hit the little arrow to the left of Drawing Resources in the browser, and hit the little arrow to the left of the sheet formats, and find the A-size landscape. Double click. Over here, be sure that it's loading the clock IAM, the assembly. Beware, sometimes it grabs the part, and then you'll just have the front bezel. You don't want that. Go ahead and hit OK. You can see it came in rather large. That was because the original sheet size, it was scaled up to fit that. And now that we have a small sheet size, it's not quite as good. So I'm going to go ahead and double click on that, and we'll change it to a 1/4 scale. And then also, you could set this to hidden lines. And under display options, tangent edges foreshortened is one of my favorites, but it's a preference. I'm going to just drag that over here. Now I need to actually swap out this title block because it's huge. It's from the other drawing. So over here, what I can do is I can hit the little arrow to the left of the sheet 2, find the ANSI large. You'll see the little image there. If you look carefully, it's actually the title block. Right click and delete that. Now find title blocks up here, hit the little arrow to the left of it, and find the ANSI A. Just double click. It should drop in a nice small title block, giving you more room. Okay, from here now we could go to projected. Drag off a bottom and a left view, and then you could go ahead and right click, hit create, and then it creates the 2 views. Now we're going to go ahead and bring in an isometric. So go to the base view, and it's going to bring in our presentation file. Click on the home view, and over here let's make it shaded. And hit OK. Now I could drag that in the upper right. I'm going to double click on it again. I would prefer a 1/4 view on that. Hit OK. All right, now we need to make a section view. So let's zoom up here. Go to section, click one time. If you don't get the green dot, click once. Hit escape. Actually, if you just pre-select it, go to section. Now you should get the green dot at the quadrant. Drag it down a little bit below it, click, drag it straight through, do not stop at the middle, drag it all the way to the top with a little bit hanging off the top. Click, right click, continue, drag it to the right, click to drop it. Make sure this isn't touching anywhere. So drag that to relocate it. Now we could go to the detail view. Click on detail view, this area right here, click once, click twice, drag it out, make sure the B is not overlapping the part, click, and drop that right up here. Again, take the text, move it in a little closer to proximity of the detail view. Finally, we're ready now to go to annotate. We're going to first drop in the bill of materials, or what is known as the parts list here. So click on this view here, the border of the isometric. Really, any of them will do, okay? And we're going to go ahead and click on parts list, and it's taken from the IAM file. Hit OK. Hit OK, and just drop that to where it snaps to the upper left corner. And now I could drag this over a little bit more to make more room. Maybe drag this down a little bit more there. And I do have more room to work with, so feel you could spread them out a little bit if you'd like. Okay, now we need to put the balloons in. So go to the balloons and just select. You could do this individually. There is an auto balloon I'm not terribly fond of right now, but for a large assembly it would be fine. But this way you have a little bit more control over your balloons, and it'll turn out a tad bit nicer than if you auto balloon it. And really there's only a few parts here. It's not that difficult to do this. And I click on the edge, click again, and then as I drag out the second one, right click, continue. Okay, and let's hit escape. And we could drag that over a little bit more. Okay, now don't forget your name. Click on text, click in this box right here, and make sure you put in your name. And hit escape, and just make sure it's centered so it looks nice. In real life, obviously, that's, there's the title block and maybe a logo, but this is what I'd like to see. Okay, now from here to print it, you just go to File, Print, and select the printer that's available. And that concludes the final exam using Inventor 2017.